Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Lokesh Aggarwal. I'm a founder and a CEO of Apexa IQ. I'm here today with two industry experts to learn anything and everything about cyber insurance. Mike and Tony, please introduce yourself. Mike, do you want to go first?
Sure. My name is Mike Boyle. I'm a managing partner with Ecliptic Capital. That's a venture capital fund in Austin, Texas. But previously, I had the privilege to be the CIO at Aflac, the CIO and COO at Allstate for all their financial services businesses, and the Allstate and the CIO at Robertson Stevens, the investment bank, when we were owned by Fleet Bank out in California. So I was a CIO for a total of 14 years. Before that, I did large-scale management of activities. I managed our technology in Europe, the Middle East, and Africa for Merrill Lynch. And before that, I started with a software startup out of Little Rock, Arkansas, writing bank software about 40 years ago.
Thanks. Tony?
I'm Tony Pizi. I'm the CTO of a digital financial services startup called Percapita. Prior to that, I was the CTO at Merrill Lynch, Deutsche Bank, and UBS, and I've founded several startups. So that's me.
No, thank you, Tony and Mike, and we thanks for being here with us today. We all know that that the study shows that cybercrime is forecasted to cost the world around $8 trillion in 2023. Right. My first question to you guys are: how did we get there? What's the history, and how did we get there? Where are we at today?
You want to take a cut at that first, Tony?
Sure. I think where we are and what we're going through is humankind has gone through before. At the dawn of the Industrial Revolution, when they were sort of mechanizing textiles and leveraging steam power and water power, coming up with new mechanisms to create iron and steel. There was all of this change. It happened, let's say, in that case, over 30 years, but it created huge opportunities, but at the same time generated new risk. So that led to companies like, say, Hartford Steam Boiler Insurance Company that came up with a set of standards and design guides, manufacturing standards, and maintenance requirements for them to cover you. So there were steam boilers that were blowing up every 4 days, and when was the last time you heard a boiler blow up? So the problems were ultimately solved because people focused on it and so forth. But they drove a lot of that innovation. Because if you wanted to be insured by them, you had to follow those protocols, follow those standards. And then when electricity came into being, United or Underwriters Laboratories was came about to bring about standards and testing around electrical and fire and fire detectors, et cetera, et cetera. So we've gone through this before. The technology revolution is perhaps faster, and the impact has been greater, more quickly. But this is the kind of thing that we've gone through before, and it just takes a while to sort out. So we're in the middle of that right now.
I'll just echo what Tony said for a second. It's my belief that insurance is the grease that makes American businesses' engine move, because without it, it would be incredibly difficult to do business, particularly on the commercial side, almost close to impossible if you didn't have insurance coverage for different kinds of things. But the problem with what has happened over the last 50 years is technology, which used to be 1 or 2 flavors, has become 50 different flavors. And as a result of that, the lack of standards across those different platforms, just to echo again, once again what Tony was saying, has created a scenario where it's really easy to have tremendously complicated environments, even in small companies, where they could have thousands of components that are out there, and they don't really know where to start fixing them. often. And so, and because of that, it's going to affect their cyber insurance rates. And we'll talk more about that later. But right now, there's just been this astonishing explosion of different platforms, but there's also been an astonishing explosion of bad guys that are out there working on hacking those platforms as well. That and the fact that there are zero-day exploits that are discovered on the two major operating system platforms that most people work off of, either for the desktop, either Microsoft Windows or Apple. These kind of zero-day exposures are found every day. So the stuff's out there, there's people looking for it, and when they get the information that they need, they go and they do bad things with it, as we all know, and that's $3 trillion worth.
Yep. And 50% of the business leaders, right, expect a breach. So my question to you guys is, right, should the company have cyber insurance?
I think that's going to depend upon the business that they're in. I would say that generally speaking, the answer is going to be yes, but the type of policy that they get may be different depending upon what line of business they're in. If they're doing billions of dollars in transactions online, they definitely need cyber insurance. But there's also other kinds of exploits, such as ransomware attacks when people lock down your infrastructure. Cyber insurance is invaluable in those situations because the insurer that you work with, when you tell them that you have a breach, they'll actually help deploy to you a person who's a breach manager to help you reduce and minimize the expenses associated with your outages that you're going through. So it's my belief that insurance is critical for most of the companies that are out there today. Tony, any extra feelings on that?
Well, I'll point out that that methods of transferring and distributing risk have been practiced since the third and second millennia BC. So the Babylonians, the Chinese, the Indians. I mean, the Chinese, when they were transferring goods to market, and they had to take their boats through the rapids, they spread it across multiple smaller boats so as to minimize the risk of losing all of their goods. So I think if insurance has been around that long, it's pretty clear that it's going to be around for the foreseeable future. And the technology is so integral to most all businesses. It's only makes sense that you get coverage. The question is, how do you get the right coverage, to Mike's point, and how do you get it at affordable cost? And that involves a number of things, not the least of which is making sure that the proper hygiene is practiced within your company, knowing where your risk is and how to effectively mitigate it. So, I don't think there's any doubt that insurance is here to stay and will be central to the cyberspace.
Perfect. And we all know that, right? And there are so many challenges today that companies are facing who actually want. And the topic here is to, enlighten those companies. Hey, what are the challenges that you guys are thinking? That you guys have been the CIO and the CTO role at multinational companies. What are the challenges do you think the companies are facing, and who want cybersecurity insurance today?
Well, maybe I'll start out on that one, Mike. I think the challenges are there are new threat vectors all the time, so it's a changing landscape. You have multiple technologies within the corporation. A lot of it's done away from IT. Historically, it's a mix from green screens all the way to modern IoT devices and everything in between. So and any one of those could put you in a situation where you're at risk. So how do you inventory it? How do you know where the major risk exists while continue to run the business? It's easy to make something secure, disconnect it from the electrical grid, from the network, and so forth. But you can't do that and stay in business. So how do you how do you minimize the risk while continue to allow the company to move forward and innovate? I think automation and continuous monitoring of the environment, giving you a view into what things are out of compliance, what things are out of need the maintenance, security updates, etc. All those are key, but you can't do it in the old way of doing everything by hand and so forth. It changes too quickly, and the stakes are too high to not apply proper tooling and techniques to helping resolve the issues.
Mike, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'll go in a slightly different direction. All of these things that these companies have that they run on their networks creates a need for them to have standards for those things and how they maintain them and how they support them. And one of the biggest problems is most large organizations, take a Fortune 2000 company, is going to have tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of devices on their network. How do they identify them? How do they keep them at the right patch levels? How do they do what they need to do to keep those devices at a level where they can protect them instead of having known hacks? And so, to me, one of the beauties about the things that are going on right now is I think we're getting to a place where underwriting standards are going to change, and they're going to change based upon facts, because in the past, they haven't really been as fact-based as what I just referred to.
Mike, you predicted that 15 years ago, right? So here we are with that, right? Where we are seeing, the underwriters, and you are seeing all the insurers, because I've been talking to a lot of CIOs, CISOs lately with the Apexa IQ, and one of the biggest challenge that they are seeing is that, hey, the underwriters or the insurance company has given us this 100-page long application, right? Just to fill up that application is taking us 2 to 3 months. And as Tony said, right, it's about bringing all those separate teams together where it's all siloed and getting everything done. It's a 3 to 6 months project just to apply for cybersecurity insurance, right? And one of the biggest challenges that the insurers are saying, just to apply, it's taking them that much time. Any advice do you guys have for those kind of people? And I know you guys can talk about Apexa IQ as well here.
Well, I'll start on this one. I mean, the biggest thing here, the key to high quality, fast underwriting is effective data capture on the front end that's automated. And in this particular case, Apexa IQ does an outstanding job of actually doing that, because it can go out and it can capture the patch levels, maintenance levels of all of the devices and software on the network, compared to a database, and tell you where your greatest risks are inside the infrastructure. That is key and crucial information that underwriters have just never had before. The real-time ability to look at a potential client's or a client's network to see what the status is of what they have to do. It's important in a couple of different ways. The first one is the automated gathering of that and the propagation of data into the underwriting application. Much of that can be turned into straight-through processing. We started doing straight-through processing with electronic applications at Allstate in 2003. And so we can do it on the cyber side, but you just have to be able to grab the data and move it through. That, if you can do that, it changes the submission timeframes and the underwriting timeframes considerably. The second thing that I'll focus on here is the fact that underwriting at every company is different, because most cyber underwriters were never CISOs. So they don't really necessarily understand all of the technical nature of what is in a particular company's environment and why it needs to be done this way. It's crucial to be able to come up with this kind of list, because then it can allow a balance to be built between the IT organization and the finance organization to handle scheduling of remediation for this stuff, which has to be a mandatory part of every budget that people use. So
I would add a bit to that.
Tony, are you muted?
I don't think so. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. I would add to what Mike said. The other thing that's while the applications today take a long time to be to be populated and accurately. The other thing is if it takes you 3 months to get an application submitted, it's out of date by the time it goes in. And it seems reasonable for an insurance company to expect not that you're sort of up to standards on the day you submit the application, but that you are most every day of the entire the entire time you're covered. And that is you wouldn't if you checked your smoke detectors on a given day and the batteries ran out a month into it, what kind of protection is that? So the insurance companies will come to expect and demand that you keep your technology estate in the proper operating condition, that you practice the proper hygiene. So over the course of the next year, if you have hundreds of thousands of devices, maybe 10% of them might be end of life, and those that are end of life and that are in the critical path, they need to be either replaced or moved out of the critical path. That kind of thing is strikes me as imperative for the insurance companies to be comfortable that you're a company they can comfortably insure at a premium that is affordable to you. So I think that goes along with automation and the sort of populating of the applications, but that you maintain that hygiene over the lifespan of the policy.
Yeah, and I think that ties elegantly to, if you can think about an analog to this being telematics, or a device that sits inside the car in your ODB2 port and manages your traffic. It's like DriveWise. There's a million of them that are out there. And if you drive safely, they give you a better rate than the person that isn't willing to put that in their car, because they know that they're tracking what's actually happening inside of your environment. Mm-hmm. That's never happened in cybersecurity insurance. To me, it's been a disaster, because over the years, there have been these waves of huge swings of profitability and losses as they get hit by one different kind of attack after another. It's almost as bad as long-term care insurance was back in the 80s, when they had uncapped benefits, and that almost took General Electric down, which was the biggest company in the world then. So, there's a lot going on right now, and this is the way that insurance has to move in cybersecurity, because it has to be data-based, fact-based, and it has to be real-time. Unless you have that, as Tony mentioned, you really don't have a good picture of your estate, and it's going to lead up to problems for you. And I can guarantee you there will be significant problems. And we've got a couple questions in the channel as well.
The one around the role of artificial intelligence, I think it's interesting. Mike and I were laughing yesterday in a conversation that the days of receiving an email from a Nigerian prince are probably behind us. The level of sophistication of the attacks moving forward from those phishing attacks are going to be altogether different. So artificial intelligence certainly offers benefits to protection, but it also gives significant new capabilities to the attackers. So I think it's going to require everyone to up their game. Certainly it will be used effectively to lock down the environment and to recognize attacks early. But the kind of attacks that will be subjected to will increase the sophistication will increase significantly also. So
Yeah, it's going to be on both sides. Back to I'll just ride Tony's coattails here for a second. On the corporate side, it's really a function of the cybersecurity tool vendors that are out there are rapidly moving to AI. We invested in a company called Threat Warrior 3 years ago that had advanced AI capabilities at the time. It is incredible for NDR, XDR, IoT, OT environments, and it's powered by a set of different unsupervised neural networks that have been independently trained to look at different bases of information. And then it rides over the top of graph DBs as well that can pick up correlations between different things. That's an amazing thing, and companies should have that kind of technology in place today. Most of them don't have those advanced pieces yet, although they're coming out from people like CrowdStrike and Darktrace and whatever over time. On the other side, I got an email. I was telling Lokesh and Tony the other day, I got an email on Monday from my father-in-law, which was, or actually it was a LinkedIn connection request. I got it from my father-in-law, which is amazing because he's been dead for 8 years. It had the town that he lived in Virginia properly. The only problem was the picture that came along with the LinkedIn profile, which only had one contact, by the way. The picture was of a middle-aged Bollywood actress. And so this is definitely something that was put together by somebody playing with artificial intelligence, in my mind, where they found a trove of some sort of data that may have been tied back to Tom, which was his name. And after that point in time, they just used that, and they've been rummaging through his contacts from wherever they found that on the internet. Since he's been dead for 8 years, they obviously got it somewhere, probably on the dark web. And as a result of that, that scares the heck out of me because they're coming for us. And this artificial intelligence stuff is just going to make phishing better and better and better. And yeah, it's going to look innocuous, but it's going to be nasty.
Yeah. Any thoughts on and the generative AI? Right, we are saying that they are going to be, easy to, I would say, break the normal encryption that there is, right, over the internet that we use, right? And any comments on that? Any additional, I would say, any additional thing that you need on top of the generic normal encryption platforms that there are? What do you get? What are your thoughts on that for a company, for a corporate?
Encrypt everything is my first response.
Yeah.
And then you can go up from there. Two-factor authentication, all the things that you need to do to have access to secure platforms properly handled. It's kind of a complicated environment, but if you do the right things, you'll do much better than your below average peers.
And in knowing that traffic, right? So I'm not going to name the university that we visited, very large university I visited, and they may have like 5,000 to 10,000 desktops, machines or screens all over the universities, right? And they had a screen over there, screensaver over there, click here, scan here to enable MFA, right? And I was like, there's other ways, right? There's an Apexa IQ who can do that for you to make sure that everybody has an MFA or MFA enabled on those platforms. But that's how people are doing it manually today to make sure that they are building these as a screensavers, right? It's MFAs enabled or not, and there are a lot of we have a lot of examples recently where a lot of companies who said during their original form filling that we have MFA enabled, but during the time frame where they were insured, it was not on every one of them. They got attacked, and insurance claims said, we're not going to literally give it you, or we're not going to cover that claim because for that reasons and that reasons only. I think that another test says that, right? It's not just when you're filling the form, what the state of your organization is, but you have to maintain that state throughout the time that you are insured. It doesn't matter you're insured or not, but you need to maintain that kind of a standard. So that I was surprised and shocked by that, and it was like there are platforms now that we can actually make sure that everything is enabled the way it's supposed to be. And another thing that we are hearing, right, that they're saying that of course it's necessity right? But it's the market is increasing, and but the partners are expecting businesses to get insured. So even if the companies are not insured, their partners are forcing them to get insured. From that perspective, what are your thoughts on that?
To me, it's just the nature of the connected world that we're in today. We're one huge supply chain, and you have to have veracity and be able to trust the people that you connect to inside that supply chain, because you pass data and transactions and business back and forth between all of these organizations. And so I think it's a good practice to require the people that you are working with, who are your suppliers, to have adequate cyber standards, because you never know when something that happened to them could come through and hit you through a back door, because they might have a connection into your databases that a hacker could gain access to and then take advantage of.
I think it's interesting, Mike. Mike started, your question was about insurance, and what Mike pivoted to was it's imperative that all of your suppliers have are operating at appropriate standards. And I think that you having cyber insurance is represents at some level that you are you're following best practices, that you can you're running your organization appropriately with the right hygiene and so forth. So I think that's going to become even more so. I think it's not. Would you do business with someone that couldn't get insurance? So if they have insurance, that means that at least at some level they've gone through some kind of hygiene check. But I think a number of years ago, if you outsource something, let's say to a third party like Workday or JustWorks, whatever, you could tell the regulators on Wall Street that we don't run those applications in house, and the regulators would accept that. That's no longer the case. The requirement now is that you evidence that the controls that not only do you follow the appropriate standards, but all the subcontractors that work with you also do. So I think it's getting better from that perspective. But it's an arms race. On the one hand, we're erecting better defenses, but it's a changing landscape all the time. And again, that's why mechanisms that monitor your technology estate on a continuous basis, and you should have a forward calendar of all of your hardware and software that's end of life, or going to be coming to end of life for the next 6 months. What's your plan?
Yep.
How are you going to move that out of the rotation and so forth? So it's it's maturing of the industry, I think, is what we're going through right now, and that's a good thing. But it is very much of an arms race, and if you don't understand it as that you've got to continue to invest in this and improve your game, then you're probably not long for this world.
Yeah, there's a fabulous opportunity now for cybersecurity insurers to capture a tremendous amount of market share, because they'll be easier to do business with. Something I've gone on about for probably close to 30 years is the concept of being easy to do business with. And being easy to do business with does not mean that a broker has to submit your policy to 10 different insurance companies to find out what rates they'll give you and come back and negotiate for you, and creates 10x the amount of work that needs to be done on a single policy, because 9 of those companies won't get it. It's a little bit silly that way. What they really need to know is get this data, or the things that they need is to be able to get this data in an automated fashion as quickly as possible, get it into their underwriting systems, have consistent data that they can compare and track over time, and they can look back from an analytic perspective to understand what is going on across the entire estate of their customers that is going on. And when you see a particular attack hit in one place, when they call you, they should actually have enough data. Let's say they went through this electronic underwriting and the way that Apexa has built it out right now, and they're able to gather all of the data that these companies need for their underwriting through automated discovery. It gives them the ability, if they want to start building a baseline of information on what is in each environment. It'd be a great thing for them to do, to create a kind of a graph database view of the world that actually allows them to understand, hey, this particular kind of intrusion happened over here at insurance company X. It happened because X, Y, and Z devices were not at the right level. Do we have that problem too? If you do, then you can put somebody to work on that ASAP, and then you can really attack the problem. Knowledge is power, and in this particular case, you need a lot of knowledge to stay ahead of the cyber crooks, because they're very persistent and they've got a lot of ways to get in and bother you.
Yeah. There's a question out there. Would you do a business with someone who doesn't have cyber insurance?
Wouldn't be my preference, because if they have a major breach, they might go out of business if they're not really successfully protected.
Perfect. And we have a question. We have actually a comment from Sanjeev that I want to pop it up. Baseline telemetry for prudent underwriting that is risk cost parity driven, and continuous monitoring for ongoing incentivization. You can't have an analytic and cognitive model without capabilities like Apexa. So that's a comment, Sanjeev was as an ex-CTO from Dell, who's a CEO of a company called Efficiency IT now, and one of my board member, my friend from the last 20 years. But Tony and Mike, any comment, any additional thing on that?
I think it's spot on in that, if you pick whatever scoring system you want, but if you want to maintain, say, this coverage for this, for this premium, then you need to maintain a score above 90, and so if whenever you fall below that, your premiums go up. And so you're positively incenting people to practice the proper hygiene, and the ability to monitor that and maintain that is key. And again, your fire detectors don't do any good if the batteries are run down, or that you don't have, you've added a major addition to a building and it has no fire. So your environment's constantly changing. The threats are constantly changing. Products are going end of life or out of maintenance or need to be patched and so forth. That is staying up with that. It ought to be a key driver of the cost of a policy, because it's driving the risk associated with that. And so I think it's it's spot on that the continuous monitoring ultimately positions you to really understand the risk profile and take the appropriate action. And that would be you drive you drive your car in a safe fashion year over year over year. You deserve better better rates than someone who has an accident every 6 months. And that's how insurance works. The problem has been that the visibility hasn't been there in the IT environment that exists within most companies. So they sort of do these spot check kinds of things, as opposed to a regular kind of assessment of how you're doing versus a baseline.
My father used to say something to me. He used to say vigilance is eternal, and that's the job of a CISO, right?
Yep.
And dealing with problems after the fact is what happens to the people in the claims company at the insurance company that actually have one of their clients have a breach. It's ridiculous that in today's day and age that we don't have automated underwriting here that has straight through passing of data. It's just crazy. The companies that don't implement this will be out of business in 20 years, at least in this particular line of business, because they won't have the right data. People that have the right data make the best decisions, particularly in environments like this, or if you're like a trader on Wall Street or something like that, the best information usually wins. In this particular case, it's very, very true, because the information that Apexa provides you shows you where your weaknesses are in your environment and gives you the ability to attack them in a systematic manner and shut down those potential breach points and reduce the surface area of attack space and that's the key thing. If you reduce your surface area substantially, after a while, the cyber guys kind of get tired of knocking their head against the door and not being able to get in. They'll go bother somebody else where it's easier to deal with them. And they may come back to you later, but they're going to leave you for a while they go find that person who didn't fix that particular patch that they needed to update.
Well, that's very well said, sir. Thank you very much, both of you. If we have any other questions if this is the time, you guys can pop in any of your questions, right? If you want to know anything else or anything more about even the platform or anything like that, we have the specialist here. We can answer that for you. And Michelle, is there any questions? What we are hearing while we are waiting for that, right? It's inevitable, right? It's not if, it's when, right? So, that's why we built Apexa. Tony's been with me and it's with us with this journey for the last two plus years. Thank you very much, Tony. Your guidance and your help has been very, 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 very great for us. Mike, thanks for helping us from multiple perspectives. Any last thoughts to the insurance company? Mike, I'll start with you, or the insurer that you guys have, before we close out the session.
I mean, I think it's quite clear. This is a move it or lose it time for insurance companies that are in this space. They need to improve their capabilities to be able to actually have fact-based underwriting instead of emotional underwriting. Today, they go through this process where they go through a questionnaire that gets submitted, and then they have a discussion about the questionnaire, and everybody gets all lovey-dovey about it, but there's still problems because their questionnaire goes nowhere near deep enough to really identify all of the assets that are inside of the environment. With Apexa IQ, you have that, and you can see that, and you can see where you are out of alignment with what the standard for that device is and do something to remediate it. That kind of power is fundamentally a game changer in this particular marketplace. And so I look forward to it really seeing its adoption broadly over the next decade. I think it's going to be an incredible thing to see.
I would add a little to that. It does strike me that there's insurance that if you want it, they come out and inspect your home. They look for trees overhanging your house. Look for whether you have the appropriate kind of active security monitoring, et cetera, et cetera. They're serious about they're saying we're in this together, and we will help you, recognize risk and reduce that. Now, project that forward. If you're an insurance company writing, cybersecurity insurance, what are you putting in place? Are you putting in place something like Apexa that would here run this to baseline? That will give us what the information we need to start, and we expect that you continue to monitor your environment with these kind of tools over the course of, the duration of the policy, so that we can make sure that you're protected, first off, so that there aren't breaches. Because nobody wins. You don't win if if you had a major breach and you got paid out by your insurance company. There's reputational harm. There's less trust in the team you have running the company, et cetera, et cetera. What the proper insurance company is helping you avoid those. They'll cover you when there's a breach. But more importantly, that they're helping you based on their experience, based on their tooling. They're helping you avoid, needing to, to be, execute on that, be paid out for a breach. And I think that's where this will have to go. When you go for insurance, they'll expect you to run these tools and provide them with, constant, the throwing off that telemetry to them so that they can, continue to evaluate you and help you avoid those, compromising situations. So I think it's inevitable that's going to go there. And I think, to Mike's point, the opportunity is for companies, the insurance companies, to pick their partners and then make certain that the monitoring, the active monitoring provided by companies like Apexa IQ can be central to how they look at the risk associated with a given company. And so I think that's inevitable. The question is how quickly that occurs. And it won't be one company, but there'll be a number of companies. But that competition is always good. So
yeah, and then the ransomware attacks are often untargeted nowadays, right? It's like a similar to pandemic. So that's another thing. And no, thank you very, very much. And I hope our listeners, our people who are watching us, they learned something new. And if anybody wants to, okay, so but that's a comment. So as I said, right, it's thank you very, very much, both of you, for providing an insight. I hope our listeners learned something today. And if you want to learn more about it, if you want to have a one-on-one sessions with any of our panelists, Mike or Tony, just let us know. You can follow us on LinkedIn, on all the social media, and just let us know on our website. Contact us and let us know if you want to learn more. Thank you very, very much, and have a great day. Appreciate it. Thanks, guys.